Hello my friends, Mia DeBolt here bringing you more transparency in trading. Thank you so much for joining me on day 7 through 9 of my FTMO repeat challenge number 2. So if you haven't followed my journey up until now, you should, because I'm getting really close to passing phase 1 and I'd like you to be along with me. So make sure that you subscribe below so that you're following my journey from where I'm at now to the 7-figure funded mark. So I logged Monday after seeing price action kind of go sideways. I didn't really like price action, so I didn't want to participate. So I logged a 0.01 lot trade. So that was day 7 on Monday. So my balance at the beginning of this week was 4.77%. And so I had some profit to play with. That wasn't the way I was thinking. I was thinking really neutrally and I was thinking of high quality trades. However, Tuesday didn't pan out that way. All right, so let's dive into the charts and you can see exactly the trades that I took on Tuesday. Okay, so Tuesday we did have red folder news at 6:45 Pacific Standard Time. And so I was looking at that and I wasn't really expecting too much from the market because we were all the way up here. We had made this big bullish push last week. And so I was kind of expecting for us to continue pushing up. So I was not expecting too much of the bearishness that actually occurred on Tuesday. However, I was looking at this and we were looking at possibly a bearish day. So we still have this unfilled opening range gap down here. And so that is always a draw on liquidity. However, we still have this volume imbalance up here that you can see on the higher time frame. All right, so this is the news. You can see here that we had kind of a sideways push up and a market structure shift. Buy side was taken and some sell side was already taken as well. So we had a bearish trend overnight. And so that was not something that I was paying attention to. And so that is something that I did log in my journal. All right, so this is the start of my trade. You can see here that I am expecting it to go all the way up to the algorithm open. Okay, so this is where I'm measuring and this is a daily fair value gap, this blue line. We're already in the open range gap, so we have a big opening range gap. The day open for the regular trading hours did have a big range. And so I was expecting a lot more of the open range gap to be filled. All right, so when we dip down into that 1 minute fair value gap, that's when I actually pushed the button. And so you can see here that it did actually move away from that fair value gap. However, look at these candles. I was not looking at that as a sign that we might be still bearish. So that was the first warning sign that this is probably going to be a trade that either failed or I was going to break even or even lose a little. So I did enter 2 minutes after the news. And so we did push up. This tan area is a current new week open gap. And so we're all the way in here. We're kind of dancing around the consequent encroachment or the 50% of that. And we've already taken some buy side and we've filled some of this open range gap. So the open range gap is all the way up here. And so I normally have kind of a green square that I like to manage, but I just didn't have that for the day. Okay, so we just go sideways and we have a little bit of profit. I kind of move my stop up and down. I'm watching where this price action is going. This is a 5 minute fair value gap. And so this is what I have shaded here. Okay, so we're moving into the 7 a.m. macro. And so that moves up to a nice profit. And had I really been thinking of a scalping environment, I might have actually taken some profit there. And in retrospect, I should have just taken all of it off because we were in a bearish environment from the morning session. And this price action where it just collapses upon itself and it rejects off of the top of the new week open gap is a really prime indication that I'm not in a bullish environment. However, I am looking more on the higher time frames and I'm not really studying the lower time frame. And so this 5 minute volume imbalance is acting nicely as support so far. And so that's kind of where I'm just ignoring the 1 minute so that I'm not too emotionally attached to this trade. And I'm just kind of trying to watch the higher time frame, watching for signs on the higher time frame that is actually going to continue bullish. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward this because this trade just goes sideways for quite a while. So unfortunately, I'm in nice profit and just because it is going sideways, I should have just closed it and probably just taken half of it off when I was uncomfortable, when I knew that price actually wasn't continuing to move up. And instead, you can see this has 1 minute fair value gaps to the downside. And so it does look like it's starting to come down. So I do have my stop loss kind of under that 5 minute fair value gap, under this breaker or this bullish order block. And so it's not actually behaving the way that I'd like it to behave if it were continuing up. And so these are all warning signs. They're things that I put into my journal and things that I will definitely consider the next time I'm in a trade like this. Okay, so it starts extending down and displacing down. Unfortunately, I did actually open my stop a little bit more and it did get stopped out. So you can see my original stop loss was going to be down here. It probably would not have been hit, or it might have been hit just with some spread. So I am glad that I just logged a small little loss. It was 0.34%. And so for the account itself is at 4.43. All right, so that's at 716. It does turn around and it does continue to go sideways. And so this is kind of where I also have logged and journaled about how I might actually come in and just watch for more information, see exactly where price might want to go. And if it's not continuing to show me signs that it is, then I just stay out altogether. Okay, around 7:25, I get the inkling to buy again, thinking that the narrative is still to fill that open range gap before we continue to go to the bearishness that was seen during the morning. And so this is where I hit the button to buy again, and this is another 1% trade. And so the first one, I'm at negative 0.34%. We do have a market structure shift, however, it's not a strong displacement. It does have a 1 minute fair value gap that I do like to see, and this is kind of showing that there's some weakness. So it's not extending up really nicely, and it's not running away from these fair value gaps. It's kind of just collapsing and moving sideways. So I am just going to fast forward this because this trade is not a super long trade like the other one was. It does give me a little bit of profit possibilities, and I actually am thinking of closing about half of it. That's if it actually breaks that structure, but it never ends up breaking that structure. Okay, so it's showing signs that it's going down. It has that 1 minute fair value gap and strong displacement to the downside. So I do end up moving and trimming my risk. And instead of actually closing out the trade altogether, I just kind of play chicken with the price action. So you can see that I get a little bit of hope. However, it's just going up to this breaker and then going to continue down. And it's also going to the mean threshold of the bearish order block. So it's really not extending up, and it's just giving a little bit of hope. Okay, so that was an opportunity for me to get out because my gut at this point was telling me that I was not on the right side, that we were not continuing up, but I wasn't quite ready for the consolidation that was going to happen during the overlap session. All right, so again, it's showing some bearishness. I played chicken with the stop loss and I move it up, I trim it instead of just closing it out altogether, and I could have lost a lot less had I just closed it out. So instead of just trimming my risk, in retrospect, I should have just closed it out altogether. And I ended the day with 1.24% loss. Okay, so you can see here that I pretty much walked away for the rest of the day. That was the end of my day. However, the PM session was great. I should have actually traded the PM session, but in retrospect, it was the right decision because I was drained from the morning session. I was kind of coming off of a long weekend. I had gone to an event, and quite frankly, my energy was really low for the day. Okay, so with that loss for the day, I ended with 3.53% for my account, and I still had some profit. So I had to really recoup and kind of reset my mindset, because when it comes to a loss or a down day, it's never the end of your trading career. So that's what I reminded myself of. It really isn't the worst thing. I didn't lose my maximum 2% that I allot for myself in my trade plan. And really, when it comes down to it, it's just about hitting the reset button and coming back stronger than ever the next day. In between that, I actually caught ICT's review on the ES and on Forex, which is amazing, by the way. If you haven't watched his latest video on the review, it's amazing. He teaches so many golden nuggets that I just can't say enough about his free mentorship. It's amazing, it's invaluable, and if you aren't watching and becoming a student of his, it's absolutely a must in order to be a profitable and consistently profitable trader. So lessons learned from the previous day: take something off or take some partials if I'm feeling uncomfortable in a trade that I feel offsides or is just going sideways, close it out altogether, wait for more information. Another lesson is just don't participate in consolidating markets. And so that was another lesson that I could have learned, to just close out for the day and just wait for the next session. And then the last lesson that I learned from yesterday's trade was to actually look for continuation signs on the 1 minute. So not just looking at the higher time frames. I like to do that just to confirm, but the higher time frames were also showing that it was just in a retracement and that was likely to go down as well. Okay, so that brings us to today, which is day 9 of my FTMO challenge. And so I hit the reset button. I started with a neutral mindset. I had 3.53% to play with. However, I started with the neutral mindset, just thinking about being present and trading effectively. Okay, so when I jumped on the charts, we already looked like we were starting to go bearish. And so this was a great indication that I just go with the flow and I go with the morning trend. Okay, so this brings us to the trade that I actually took, which was not on the ES like I normally do. It was actually on Nasdaq. So after the New York equity open, I actually looked at all 3 indices and we actually had some divergence. So we had the Nasdaq going up, the DXY going up, but the other 2 indices going down. So we had symmetry in both 30 and 500. However, the Nasdaq was still an accumulation of shorts. And so that's kind of where the Six Sister approach came in, and I was looking to short the Nasdaq. All right, so you can see here that the ES was going down and that the Nasdaq was up here. So it was strong, it was going up to an efficiency. The DXY was moving up nicely, and so the Nasdaq was the Six Sister. So I was expecting that to catch up. So I did start this with a 0.5%, and so this is where I do have a very conservative stop, and I do believe that this is going to continue down. There is a bearish order block here, and so I'm expecting that to hold price down. All right, so we do continue to accumulate a little bit more, and so I am pressing the sell button in the buy situation there as well, and it does end up going up a little bit more. I'm not expecting this to go up one more time. However, I do have a better position here. So that's kind of a new strategy that I am expecting. So you can see here Nasdaq is going up and the other 2 are going down. So one thing is if I'm very sure about a trade, I'm going to actually split my risk and have one of the positions be a partial. Okay, so you can see here one of my take profits is down here. So I did look at that and it did take a daily low. It took a little bit of sell side, but it didn't extend down. It was just a shallow run down below the daily low. And so I am expecting this to continue down. All right, so I'm watching the ES as well. We're coming into a place of interest because we have a daily fair value gap and a daily consequent encroachment. And so I am just setting my alarms, kind of watching all 3 indices, watching the DXY. So we extend nicely down. However, I'm not quite sure if we're just going to be having divergence here, if we're about to turn around, because the ES is kind of just eking down a little bit. However, it does extend nicely. I do have a nice little profit here going. However, it does just kind of hold up here at this bullish order block, and so if we do end up turning around, this low might be the low of the day. So I'm not quite sure. I'm still just being patient and biding my time watching price action. Okay, so when it does this, I am expecting to kind of just take off half of that position, and so we do just touch that bearish order block, that breaker, and so that's a good indication that we might continue to go down as well. So I was just trying to be patient and not turn my risk too much and too aggressively before the price was actually going to show us where it was going. So it just has a nice displacement down, so it's giving me the nice warm fuzzy. Okay, so after we take that first low, I actually close out half of the position and lock in some profits. So I take off half of it because I'm not quite sure. It didn't make a 1 minute fair value gap. I'm not quite sure if it's going to continue down. And so I moved my stop to break even and I have 0.31% locked in. Okay, so it does retrace. I give it a little bit of room. However, it should continue to go down if it's going to be bearish, and it does continue down. So, and I'm okay with my stop being hit if it is, because I would still be in some profit. However, it does start extending down and starts going down. And so I start moving my stop down. And so once we start extending down here, then I actually realized that I don't have any targets down here. So because I don't analyze the Nasdaq like I analyze the S&P, then I actually had to go to a higher time frame and figure out if there's targets down below. Okay, so this is where I go to the higher time frame. The 1 hour does have a nice fair value gap that can be a draw on liquidity, and so that's definitely what it looks like. So it's starting to extend nicely down, and so that's where I do have that on my 1 minute chart now. Okay, so we're at a daily fair value gap low. We're at the 1 hour fair value gap, and so I'm expecting this to continue down. However, it is kind of acting as support, and so that's where taking another 0.25% is what I'm thinking. I really want to lock in some more profit. I'm thinking of just being really aggressive with my stop loss. However, I think twice about that and just expect some more downside, and so I move my stop up and I'm taking a partial there. All right, so I took a partial. 0.86% is locked in, and then it just starts to consolidate and starts to retrace. So, and I feel like my stop is at a conservative level. However, because I don't trade Nasdaq very often, having my stop in a more conservative level where there is an order block and it's higher than the open or close, that's something that I still have to back test. So my stop ends up getting hit, and that's okay with me because it is in profit. It's only 0.25%, and so there's a little bit more profit. I end up with 1.21% for the trade itself, and so risking 1% and getting 1.21% almost to break even from yesterday is a pretty good place to be. So the Nasdaq does end up going down again and goes down to fill most of the 1 hour fair value gap that I had marked up. However, I was now out of the trade. Okay, so you can see here that I have day 9 logged, and you can see here that I am at 4.74% for the account, and I did log 2 losses yesterday, and then I had a partial and a couple of wins today. So I am at a pretty nice place where I do feel like I recouped yesterday. I'm back at neutral with my mindset, and I'm looking to build my profit cushion. And so one of the mindsets that I wanted to share with you is one that my mentor Danny Reardon actually shared with me, which is protect your profits like they're your children. So that's something that I forgot yesterday. Had I been thinking about that and really been on my game, I would have taken partials and maybe even closed out in profit and just walked away with a little bit of profit, even though I was on the wrong side. So those are all lessons to be learned, things that I'm going to carry forward with me in my trading, and things that I have on sticky notes around my office. Okay, my friends, I hope that you got something out of today. And so if you want to continue this journey with me, make sure that you're following me by subscribing below, and I'll look forward to bringing more trades to you like this. All right, my friends, look for day 10 here coming soon, because tomorrow and Friday have a lot of red folder news. And so that always means a lot of movement in the market. All right, my friends, I look forward to seeing you in the next trade. See you soon. Bye.